The alarm shrieked through the Galactic Embassy's corridors at 0300 hours, sending William sprinting toward the Zathari wing with his pulse rifle charged and ready. As captain of the elite guard, he'd responded to countless threats, but nothing chilled his blood quite like a breach in the Predator quarters. The Zathari were apex predators from a death world, where survival meant hunting in packs and showing no mercy. Their adults stood 8 feet tall with obsidian claws that could shred combat armor like tissue paper. Their young, 12 cubs currently housed in the embassy's cultural exchange program, were supposedly manageable. William had never believed that lie. "Sir, the human liaison is missing," crackled Lieutenant Vexcor through his comm. "Dr. Melissa Chen's quarters are empty. Last sensor reading places her entering the Zathari nursery at 2100 hours. William's stomach dropped. 3 hours ago. Anything could have happened in 3 hours. He assembled his team outside the reinforced nursery doors. 8 soldiers in full combat gear, weapons trained on the entrance. Through the small observation window, he could see nothing but darkness. The Zathari preferred hunting in the dark. "On my mark," William whispered, fingers dancing over the security override. The massive doors hissed open with agonizing slowness, revealing a scene that made every soldier freeze in their tracks. The nursery was supposed to be a sterile containment area with specialized feeding stations and climate controls. Instead, it looked like someone had transformed it into a children's library. Cushions and blankets were scattered everywhere. Holographic projections of stars twinkled across the ceiling. And in the center of it all, curled up in a pile of predator cubs, was Melissa. She was fast asleep, her dark hair splayed across a cushion, one hand still clutching an old Earth tablet displaying pictures from what appeared to be a children's book. Around her, 12 Zathari cubs, each the size of a full-grown wolf, were arranged in a protective circle, their bodies pressed against hers. The largest cub had its head resting on her stomach, purring with a sound like distant thunder. "Stand down," William breathed, lowering his weapon. His team looked at him like he'd lost his mind, but something in the scene before him spoke of peace, not danger. The moment he spoke, however, 12 pairs of luminescent yellow eyes snapped open. The cubs didn't scatter or flee. Instead, they rose as one, placing themselves between the soldiers and the sleeping human. The largest cub, a female William recognized as Shara, bared her developing fangs and released a warning hiss that promised violence. "Easy," William said, holstering his rifle and holding up his empty hands. "We're just here to check on Dr. Chen." Shara's growl deepened. Behind her, the other cubs began to fan out, moving with the coordinated precision of hunters despite their youth. They were protecting Melissa like she was one of their own. "Captain, we should tranquilize them," Vexcor suggested nervously. "Negative. Nobody fires." William took a slow step forward and immediately 3 cubs lunged toward him, stopping just short of his boots. "Melissa," he called softly. "Dr. Chen, you need to wake up." She stirred, mumbling something in Mandarin before her eyes fluttered open. For a moment she looked confused. Then she registered the armed soldiers and her expression shifted to horror. "Wait. Don't." She sat up quickly, wrapping her arms around the nearest cubs. "They're not dangerous. Please don't hurt them." "Ma'am, you're in violation of about 17 safety protocols right now," William said, trying to maintain his professional composure. "What are you doing here?" Melissa looked down at the cubs surrounding her, and her expression softened with affection that seemed absurdly misplaced. They couldn't sleep. The facility is too cold, too quiet. On their homeworld, Zathari young sleep in family piles for warmth and security. "They were stressed, Captain, so I came to read to them." "Read to them," William repeated flatly. "Yes. Earth fairy tales mostly. They seem to like Where the Wild Things Are." She held up the tablet. "I must have dozed off around the 3rd story," Shara chirped, an almost bird-like sound, and nuzzled against Melissa's shoulder. The other cubs began to relax, some returning to curl around the human while others watched the soldiers with wary curiosity. "Dr. Chen, these creatures could have killed you," William said, though his conviction was wavering as he watched a cub the size of a bear playfully bat at Melissa's hair. "Their species has a documented hunting instinct that activates around prey," Melissa interrupted gently. "But I'm not prey, Captain. I'm pack." She scratched behind Shara's ears and the cub's purr intensified. "Humans co-evolved with wolves. We understand pack dynamics instinctively. These cubs recognize that. William looked at his team, then back at the impossible scene before him. Any other species in the galaxy would have been torn apart. The Zathari adults were scheduled to arrive tomorrow to retrieve their young, and the diplomatic implications of a human bonding with their cubs were staggering. "This is going to cause a political incident," he muttered. Melissa smiled. "Or it might just save the alliance. The Zathari respect strength, but they revere those who protect their young." She gestured to the cubs. "Tomorrow, when their parents arrive, they'll smell me on their children. They'll see that a human kept them safe, kept them happy, treated them like family." As if to punctuate her point, the smallest cub, barely bigger than a house cat, crawled into William's lap and looked up at him with huge, trusting eyes. Despite himself, William felt his heart melt slightly. "Pack," the cub whispered in broken standard, its first word. Then it curled up and promptly fell asleep in his arms. William looked at Melissa, who was grinning triumphantly. Around them, his elite guard soldiers were slowly being adopted by curious cubs seeking warmth and attention. "Humans," he sighed, but he was smiling now. "You're all completely insane." "Maybe," Melissa said, lying back down as the cubs settled around her once more. "But we're also really good at making friends." William carried the sleeping cub and ordered his team to stand guard from inside the nursery this time. He couldn't help but think that maybe humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their seemingly infinite capacity to find family in the most unlikely places, even among the galaxy's most fearsome predators.